Welcome to the show. Here's my dad.
On this episode of the Infant Adoption Guide podcast, we talk about the top 10 questions to ask an adoption agency before you sign up with them. Well, hello, and welcome back to the Infant Adoption Guide podcast. My name's Tim Elder, dad of 3 through infant adoption. This is where we talk all about infant adoption, give you the inspiration, resources, stories, hope, the community that you need to start your adventure. You're thinking about 24/7. I've been there and done that, and that's building your family through infant adoption. So thank you for joining me today. This is a very special episode because it's just you and me talking about infant adoption. And I wanted to do this because I get a lot of people asking me about how to find the right adoption agency. A lot of people come into our Facebook group, and that's the first thing they ask: how do we get started? How do we find the right agency? Or they're asking about agency recommendations or those types of things. And so maybe this is you. Maybe you're in that spot where you're like, I don't know what agency to work for or work with, and how do I find them, and what do I even ask them? Great questions to ask, and you're certainly not alone. It can be pretty overwhelming just to start the infant adoption journey, or just considering it and not even know where to start, what to do first, or where to find answers. So today we're going to help you. And one of the first things is, choosing an adoption agency. And it's a big decision to make, and maybe one of the most difficult ones because the choices are overwhelming. There's thousands of agencies out there. And to choose the right one for you to trust all the way through your journey to adopt could be daunting, very daunting. And I wanted you to know, before we get into the 10 questions, that I've created a brand new online course that will help you do all of this step by step. And it's called Find My Adoption Agency online course. Through videos and resources, I walk you step by step how to find and where to find adoption agencies, how to evaluate them, and get to the point when you're done with that course, you're going to choose the right one for your journey, and you're going to be happy and comfortable about it. So go to findmyadoptionagency.com, and you'll see how to get started in this course. And part of that course is what we're going to talk about today, which is the top 10 questions to ask an adoption agency when you're interviewing them. So you're contacting the agency and you want to know more about them. Of course, there's many more than 10 questions to ask. And most agencies will provide some answers to these questions that are right on their website, or maybe they'll send you a free information packet. So you should be able to get answers to things like, do they specialize in infant adoption? What states are they licensed in? How long have they been an agency? Or what are the requirements to adopt, like your age, your marital status, etc.? Or do they even work with families from all over the country, or just in your local area? These kinds of questions, you should be able to get most of them, if not all, through their website or information packet. But let's get into the top 10 questions outside of that. These are the ones you're probably going to set up an interview with, probably over the phone, but maybe over Zoom, something that you want to set up with them, a time that you can specifically go through and ask all these questions and get the answers. And I recommend writing them down as you're getting the answers, so you're not trying to remember what they said afterwards. The questions are this, number 1 through 10. And let's start with number 1. And the first one's very important. It's talking about placements, and how many adoptions or placements does this agency complete every year? And how many did they complete last year? And I don't know, last year is 2020 at the time of this recording, which is a pandemic year that threw everything off. But I would ask them, so it's more important to even ask them how many they complete every year. And the reason you want this is because you want to know what the number is. If they do 2, 3, 4, even less than 10 placements a year, really small agency, it might not be the best one for you. You probably want one that has a lot more placements every year, because it's just going to reduce your wait time. Which leads us into question number 2, which is, how long is the average wait time for families to be matched with an expectant mom? And this really will, both those questions together will give you an idea of how long you're going to wait. Of course, when you think about average, that means some people wait longer and some people wait shorter, and that's okay. You're just trying to get an idea from that agency how long the wait time could be for you and your family. So number 3 is, will you work with us being the adoptive family who wants to adopt with this agency, will you work with us to complete the home study? And the home study, if you're not familiar with it, something everybody's got to do. It is something that each state requires an adoptive family to do. You cannot have a baby placed with you without a home study completed. And it's basically the process to make sure you are capable and qualified, to use, for lack of a better word, to adopt a baby and bring a baby into your home. And the social worker will conduct this. They'll do a couple of different interviews, maybe one in their office, maybe one in your home, certainly one in your home, at least one. And they'll ask you just a ton of questions about you, your life, what you're like, what your parenting will be like, all those types of things that are pretty invasive, but that's what it takes to get a home study done. And so if this agency can't do that for you, for whatever reason, ask them who can. Who would they recommend complete the home study for you? And there are usually more than one options. I know in the place where we live, we're not in a hugely populated area, but there's still several options to get a home study done in our state. And the pricing is a little bit different. Some prices are different than others based on which social worker or agency will complete your home study. So you might want to shop that around and check it out. All right, number 4 is, can you provide an itemized list of all the costs, the fees, the expenses, and when they are due? And this is important because you want an itemized list. So everything's spelled out, which part is due and how much is it and when is it due? Because this will help you budget. I mean, if they ask for a $2,000 application fee up front and then don't charge you anything else until a placement or a match, you need to know that so you can budget along the way. These costs and fees are definitely in the tens of thousands when you work with an agency. So knowing what that itemized list is and when they're due will help you. And in our course, Find My Adoption Agency, we give you the spreadsheet that shows all list of all these itemized costs and fees, the typical costs, fees, and expenses. And then we give you a spreadsheet that you can use to plug them in and plug in the due dates and when they are due and to whom they are due. So it's a very organized way to keep track of all your costs and expenses once you know what they are from your agency you're going to work with. So number 5 goes right along with it because it asks what costs might we have that are not part of your agency's fees. So they may give you an itemized list of all the costs and fees and expenses, but what else could you run into that would be an expense? Case in point, or an example would be if you adopt from another state, your cost could be travel expenses to that other state and how long you may now have to stay there until the baby is placed with you. So they should be able to help you with that and give you an idea of what those costs could be. And that also falls right into your budget on how much you need to save and by when, so you have a good idea on how to prepare for your adoption. And number 6 is what happens if a match falls through after you pay some of these fees or expenses. So I know there are some national agencies that will actually cover that in the costs that you pay them. So if a match falls through, so say you're matched with an expectant mom and she changes her mind and decides to parent, and after you paid some fees, how does that agency handle that? Do they say, oh, sorry, you paid that fee and now you're going to pay the next matching fee when you match the next time? Or is that, oh no, you pay one match fee, you're covered now? Important distinction to make, because it could add up quick if you have a couple different matches that fail. And fail is a hard word to say. It's more like falling through, or maybe just a change of heart for the expectant mom. But it changes the match for you, and you start over and get matched with the next expectant mom. So number 7 is, how will you help us create our adoption parent profile? So a parent profile is a little bit of a book, and it's usually 10, 20 pages long, something like that, and usually in a PDF form, so an online or electronic form. And you create it to kind of share your life, what life is like, your life is like, so you can show it to an expectant mom. And it would be the agency showing this to her. And it's going to be in pictures and words of describing you and your life. And the point of it all is to show that expectant mom what life will be like for her baby and your family. And you want to know from the agency how they're going to help you create that profile. They'll probably have some kind of parameters, some standards, something that they tell you, this is how we think you should make a parent profile. We think this is what works well with connecting with expectant moms. The other thing is you could ask them if they would allow you to make a video. And I'm a big believer in making a profile video because that worked for us all 3 times. We made a quick 2 to 3 minute video for each one of our adoptions, and our kids as birth parents just absolutely loved them, and it set us apart. I truly believe it set us apart and helped us to get matched. So it's another great question to ask the agency. All right, number 8 is, how do you help birth families and adoptive families, make an open adoption plan? An open adoption plan is something that you work with through the agency, hopefully, but work with and to build the relationship with your kids as birth families. So it means how much communication, how much contact you're going to have with them. Does that mean just sending letters and photos every now and then? Does it have some kind of social media connection? Do you exchange phone numbers? Do you have visits in there? How does that agency help you create that open adoption plan, which is super important for all members of the adoption triad, the birth families, the adoptive families, and the adoptee? Super important to make that plan. How are they going to help you do that? Number 9 is, how much experience do you have with helping families adopt a baby from another state? And this goes back to, do they even do that? Do they work with families from all over the country or even surrounding states? Or is it just their state that they're licensed in? And then what kind of experience do they have with helping you do that? So there's paperwork involved. There's some legal stuff involved. You're going to have to stay in another state for a period of time until that paperwork is completed. How much experience do they have to help you through that process? Great question to ask. And lastly, the last question, number 10, is, what type of counseling or support do you provide the birth family before and after placement? So this is super important because it really tells the tale of how much that agency cares about the whole adoption. They're not just caring about placement. They're not just caring about whether they get a baby in your arms. They're actually caring about your child's birth mom and the birth family. How do they support her? What kind of counseling? What kind of support before the baby's placed, and even especially after the baby's placed, because she is going to need that support and she deserves that support. Super important question to ask. Have them detail it out for you exactly what they mean by counseling or support pre and post placement. All right, so there you go. There are the 10 questions to ask, the top 10 questions to ask an agency when you're interviewing them and getting started in the adoption world and trying to get find the right agency for you to help you all the way through the process, through the journey. So I hope that helps you. And I know it's just a kind of a Kickstarter or kind of a bit to go on. And we go into way more detail in the course, Find My Adoption Agency. I highly recommend you go check it out. It's available for you right now. Instant access. You get lifetime access and some special bonuses in there. Everything you need to go through, find your adoption agency, the one that's going to help you and really be your champion, your cheerleader all the way through the journey to adopt. Go to findmyadoptionagency.com and you'll see how to get started. Or if you're even on the infantadoptionguide.com page, at the very top, you'll see a link to it as well. And in the show notes, we'll put some things in there, these questions. If you haven't written them down or you want to go back over them, they will be at infantadoptionguide.com/88. And I hope you really enjoyed this and got something out of it and help you find the right agency for you. And thank you so much for joining me today. You are in my prayers as you go on your journey to adopt. And God bless you, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thanks for listening to my dad.